So today I'll be talking about the power of having a speak up culture, having environments where employees' voice is welcome and it's really good for business.
Wow. What? Okay. Red light means we're on. And we're live. We're live. We're live. We're here.
We're here. We're live.
Live from our basements. Hello, LinkedIn universe. So good to have so many of you here. Hello, everyone. Steven Shadletsky here. Delighted to be with you again.
Well, I'm still in my basement. This is my basement studio, and I'm delighted to be joined by a good friend who I don't think you're in your basement, Steven. Is that right?
I am not. No, I'm in my studio.
Love it. Love it. I'm in my studio too, which just happens to be located in my basement as well. Hello, all. Welcome back. This is Steven and Steven, Shapiro and Shadletsky. So delighted to be live and with you. I believe we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, all the social places, or at least most of them. As you join, please hop into the chat, say hello, let us know where you're joining us from, and what does being pivotal mean to you. So let us know where you're from and what does being pivotal mean to you. We're going to have this conversation today with my dear friend, Steven Shapiro. Steven, you and I have known each other, I think, for like 15, maybe more years. I used to follow you around and was your groupie as you did the Art of talks many years ago. I think at the time you were doing Personality Poker, one of your brilliant books and processes and games. And I just loved your style. I loved your flexibility. I remember you'd go up on stage with an iPad and it was never linear. It was always in the moment, changing which slide at which point. Like, it was brilliant. And you were one of the sort of first keynote speakers that I felt was doing interactive keynotes, as opposed to, I have a message to share, you listen to it. No, like, you really take what the audience needs and build with and from. So I always loved that style that you had years ago and still do have today. And you were gracious enough to spend time with me. I remember we walked through the underground path in downtown Toronto and got I was going to say a fine cup of Tim Hortons coffee, but, adequate darkened water. Yeah, you were just gracious and open then. And all these years later, we've developed this friendship and that I really appreciate and love. So welcome to the live.
I'm just so honored to be here because, again, we've known each other for a long time now. And first of all, thank you for what you just said, because that was just like, a lot of people want to be known for their applause that they get or their content, but actually I want to be remembered for like the feeling people have and the emotions that they have when they leave. And yeah, you're going to learn something, but it really just, I want it to be an experience. And so I'll thank you for acknowledging that. It really means a lot to me.
Awesome. Well, you truly do it brilliantly well. So, yeah, amazing. So, okay, you've written a bunch of books. You've had an interesting career, law background, engineering background with Accenture for many years, and you've been writing books and speaking for many, many years. You've written Personality Poker, Best Practices Are Stupid, Invisible Solutions. I love that so often your content takes something that we take for granted and then you flip it on its head. This sort of notion that when you apply best practices everywhere, that doesn't work. Context matters. So you've just come out with your latest book, or it's coming out in a month, about 3 weeks, June 18th. Your next book, Pivotal, comes out, Creating Stability in an Uncertain World. And there are certain words that became part of our sort of daily business vernacular through COVID. And one of them was pivot, right? As Ross from Friends said, pivot, right? And so many organizations at that time needed to pivot because literally the world around them changed. There were certain things they didn't need to change about themselves and their business, but the world around them changed. But like anything overdone can derail and become a limitation or a weakness. And I think that's true with pivot. So take us through the impetus for this book. What do you mean by pivotal?
So when we were coming up with the title for the book, we came up with like 100 really bad titles. And then a friend of mine, Robbie Richmond, said, how about pivotal? it's like plays off the word pivot. So like the cover of the book, we intentionally, if you sort of cover this word up, you get the pivot, but we did the AL in a different color. And the reason was because even though they have the same root, they mean something fundamentally different. Pivoting means basically spinning around in circles. Pivotal, the definition of it is actually to be of crucial importance, to be irreplaceable. And look, isn't that what we all want? We want to be irreplaceable, so incredibly crucial and important to our customers that we're the only ones that they can do business with. And so that was one of the reasons why we went with the term pivotal, but also it really is almost in some respects the antidote to pivoting, because we've spent so much time spinning around in circles. And when I've been working with clients, not even just during the pandemic, but even before then, the level of uncertainty, the level of chaos, the level of the number of bright, shiny objects that organizations start focusing on, well, what happens is it gives us a lack of clarity on where we should put our energies, and it burns out the workforce. People have no clue what they're doing. There's just so many studies in terms of just the level of disengagement and lack of satisfaction inside the workplace because people don't know what to do. They don't feel like they're adding value. So I thought this was sort of the right time to write a book on really bringing sanity back into the workplace, some level of stability into the work that we do.
Yeah. I've heard from leaders in large enterprises. I just did a live last week with around a topic of change management, and some organizations have 8 or 9 change initiatives going on at the same time. Like, how can anyone be pivotal when there's so much pivoting going on? Like, it's just chaos. And I think we can. What I'm hearing from you is we can lose ourselves in how we can be stable and add value if it's constant change all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the analogies that I like to use, maybe it's a metaphor or simile, I never quite know, but I'm in Orlando, Florida, and our team, the Orlando Magic, our basketball team, had a pretty good year, one of our better years. But I've done work with them, and I love when we talk about a pivot, let's just go to the basketball definition for a moment. If we were here in person, I'd actually demonstrate for you with a basketball, but exactly, this is a pivot. Now, what happens is everybody's so focused on the foot that's moving. They're so focused on what's changing. Okay, we need to change because of COVID. We need to change because of supply chain issues. We need to change because of inflation. We need to over and over and over.
Yeah,
exactly. AI is the new one now. And so, but here's the fascinating thing is, in a pivot, technically the foot that doesn't move is the pivot point. Yes. And so that's really what the book is the book is really a manifesto for the foot that doesn't move. It's about the planted foot. Yeah. And the planted foot really is around how do we figure out what we do better than anyone else in the world that no one else could possibly do, that the world desires, and it's going to stand the test of time. And that's really the essence of what it means to be pivotal.
Love that. And to share more about that analogy. So if you are a basketball fan, you'll know this well, but even if not, so pivot, the definition I heard of pivot is to move about a central axis, right? If in basketball you move your pivot foot without dribbling, or you move your pivot foot and you've lost your dribble, it's a turnover. It's called a travel, and the game stops. We whistle, right? And you give the ball to the other team. And so I'm hearing, if you're pivoting all the time, you're actually just walking around without any stability or definition. But when we move about a central axis, there are some things that you cannot change. So can you speak to that, Stephen? What are the things for us as individuals and leaders in organizations? What's the stuff that makes us pivotal such that when we need to make a pivot, we have definition on who we are?
Yeah, and you just described it brilliantly, because we do need to pivot. So I am not against pivoting, but if pivoting is the norm and it's not done from a place of stability, if you don't have that foundation in place, you're going around in circles. You don't get any traction in the business. And so basically what we're saying is you need to have that solid foundation. You need to figure out what it is. And in the book, we have, there's 5 Ds that are critical. And the first 3 Ds are all around that planted foot. You need to be distinctive. Distinctive is sort of the different and differentiated. You need to be doing something that no one else in the world is doing, but you also have to be desirable, because doing something differently for the sake of being different doesn't mean people are going to want what you offer. So you have to solve someone's pain. You have to create something. You have to solve their problems in a way that no one else can. And by the way, when we look at desirability, it's not just external, like our customers must desire it, but it must be desirable internally, because if we're doing things that are basically causing our employees to be stressed out and leave and disengaged, well, then that's not desirable. Might be for our customers, but if we're losing money and losing employees, that's not. So those first two Ds are all around today. For us to be really pivotal, we need to have something that's distinctive and desirable today. But also, if we look to the future, the third D is durable. Just because you're different doesn't mean somebody can't copy it. And so that third D, being durable, means that it will stand the test of time and that it will be difficult for someone to replicate. And so if you look at those three give you the planted foot. Those three tell you where you should be investing your energies. And the key thing is, if you think about this, products, processes, services are almost never durable. They're never distinctive in the long run, partly because our needs change. Like every year, Apple has to come out with a new phone. Most of the time we're creating new products, or we create something and the competition is able to replicate it. So what typically is durable, distinctive, and desirable are capabilities. And we go deep into that in the book. How do we figure out what it is we do better than anyone else as a capability that allows us to create new products, create new services and new offerings, as opposed to just thinking our products and services are going to keep us going for a long time?
Nice. What's one of your favorite examples of that, whether it's an Apple or another organization that does those first three Ds exceptionally well?
So one book, I had a chance to talk with the chief wagoneer, basically the guy who runs Radio Flyer. And if you don't know Radio Flyer, basically they make wagons. Now, you don't think of like little red wagons as something which is that distinctive necessarily, but it really is, because it's not just a wagon. There are less expensive wagons people can buy. But when Robert Passon, the CEO, started talking with people, he asked them, like, when you think of Radio Flyer, what comes to mind? And their response was never, it's a nice wagon. Almost always the first thing would happen is somebody would smile, and then they would tell a story. Oh, my Radio Flyer, it was so great. It wasn't even a wagon. It was a rocket ship. It was a spaceship. It was a flying carpet. We were doing all these great things, and the wind was blowing through my hair. So people have these great memories. And so what they decided is that their differentiator, their purpose, their whole reason for being was going to be around basically bringing smiles to people. And that's not a product. That is just a way of life. And they've launched a retail store, and it's designed purely to bring smiles and joy to people. Everything they do, that's what they're focused on. So I love that they focused on that rather than saying, we make wagons. Lots of people make wagons, cheaper wagons, but they don't make wagons. They make smiles.
Love that. The thing that comes to mind there is it also must be lived from the inside out, that if they aren't providing smiles internally for their folks, it's only lived in the marketing and the products. And eventually that's not durable from the inside out, in the sense that if your own employees look at your own advertisements and go, yeah, right, you got a problem. but a great sort of distinctive feature is it's lived on the inside for the employee experience as well.
Yeah, and that's actually the fifth D, which is disseminated.
Yes.
And what we need to do is make sure we first start internally. Everybody inside the organization needs to understand our differentiator, what makes us special. And then they need to align their work. Everything that they do has to be aligned with that. Because the reality is every person, no matter what you do, no matter where you are in the organization, you contribute to your differentiator in some way. And the goal is to maximize your personal differentiator, what makes me special as an individual, and how it aligns with the organization's differentiator. When we get that 1-2 combination and then we can bring it to the world, it's a beautiful, powerful thing that's really hard for others to copy.
Love that. Love that. I'm just gonna go to our comments here. Please do hop in and say hello. Let us know where you're joining us from and what it means to be pivotal to you. We have my friend Chris Switch from South Dakota, who's checking in and sharing what it means to be pivotal for him. Love that. And hello, Ranjita from Hyderabad, India. Love it. Hop in, say hello, and let us know what comments or questions you have as well for Steven Shapiro on what it means to innovate, what it means to be pivotal. Take us through. So you have distinctive, desirable, durable. There's one more I don't think we've hit yet, which is dynamic before you go from that inside out dissemination, which I love. And I love that Venn diagram. So take us through dynamic.
So if you think about the first 3 feet, the first 3 Ds as the planted foot, the fourth D is the moving foot. What we want to do is we need to recognize that, look, the world is going to change. People are going to have different buying behaviors. There's different expectations. There's new competition. There's new technologies. All these things, we need to be prepared to adapt. But we don't want to do it reactively. We want to do it from a place of power. So let me just give you a very simple example here. And this, I don't know how deep we want to get into this other framework. But if we think about AI for a moment, so AI is the bright, shiny object of the moment. Every client I talk with, every conference I go to, every meeting I'm on, it's AI, AI, AI. And look, AI is important.
Like we're singing a song from Nelly, right? AI. Carry on. Sorry, had to.
I think you should be streaming that through right now. But here's the problem is most people think I'm going to create something with AI that's going to be so distinctive that it's going to put me apart, separate me from everyone else. And here's the problem is unless you are an AI-centric company, what I mean by that is 100% of what you do is AI, or at least a large portion. Like I come from Accenture. Accenture is investing a ridiculous amount of money in AI, understanding it, leveraging it, building tools around it. So they would be an AI-centric company. But if you are a hospital, there's no way you could ever create something that will be distinctive and durable with AI if you try to do it on your own, because you're going to take your eye off what makes you special as a healthcare provider. So when we look at AI, it is rarely for most organizations going to be a differentiator, but it's going to be table stakes. It's going to be required. We must do it. We have to have it. But if you're putting all your eggs in that basket, you're going to be wildly disappointed, because as soon as you implement something with AI, first of all, the AI technology is evolving so fast that something better will come out. Your competition will use the newer version of that technology, and now you're behind the 8 ball. Technology for most companies, including AI, is never a differentiator. But we need to become good at it, because as they become table stakes, we need to start investing in it. And that really gives us some clarity, though, around its priority and the relationship we have to build with others to be able to keep that going.
So let's unpack this a bit more, because I think it's really important. So you're not saying that AI doesn't belong in a hospital setting, but you're saying a hospital or healthcare company shouldn't be the one who's doing that work on the AI necessarily. They should either partner with or follow when a technology company says, okay, now we can put AI to follow around your healthcare providers and take notes or check that the medication is the right medication. But it shouldn't be the healthcare company doing that. It should be the tech company innovating on that. Is that what you're saying?
It's sort of like an and there. I mean, I think what's important is to recognize that the healthcare provider probably will be doing some AI work internally. So it's not your to be AI centric shouldn't be the key of your strategy. You need to figure out what you do better than anyone else. And it's not going to be AI. So what do you do better than anyone else that's going to stand the test of time? And then, look, you need to figure out tools to help augment it. You need to be able to think about partners that you can work with. You need to be able to use different practices that others are doing to implement it. So I'm not saying ignore it. I'm not saying don't do it. But if it becomes front and center of everything you do, well, what happens to all the things that were important yesterday?
Got it.
Now, all of a sudden, we're chasing another bright, shiny object, and we take our eye off the ball. And that's when we get into trouble.
Got it. So it's again leaning back into is it Wildfire? You said the wagon company.
The what?
The company that makes wagons, they don't
Oh
define
yeah,
themselves by
Radio Flyer.
Radio Flyer. So they don't define themselves by we make wagons. They define themselves by that piece of the pivot foot that isn't going to change. We put smiles on people's faces.
Exactly. And so when they're creating a new product, when they're launching a new store, when they're bringing people on into the workforce, they're always asking themselves, will this help us put more smiles on people's face?
Yeah.
And obviously there's more to it behind the scenes, but that's, sort of the broad brush of it. And I think it's a beautiful way to think about it, because it's very hard to replicate. Anybody can create wagons, but to create those experiences and those feelings, and it taps into nostalgia, which, we've become a little nostalgic right now. So it's a perfect timing for them.
Nice.
But like anything, they need to keep their eye on what happens when nostalgia is not appreciated, or when, if there are tough economic times and cost is the only thing. It doesn't mean they change, but maybe they have to just adapt. They have to do that dynamic move slightly.
Yeah. But putting smiles on people's faces won't go out of fashion. It's how they bring that to life. Might be dynamic. Yeah. Another fun example of this, and maybe you haven't heard this one, Stephen, is I had the chance to visit a company in Switzerland, Victorinox. They make the Swiss Army knife, among other things. And they were working on, what's their distinctive piece, what's their purpose, and they couldn't really articulate it themselves. So they similarly went to customers. They had customers writing letters in. There was one letter that they received saying, I've had this Swiss Army knife. My grandfather gave it to me. He had it when he served in the Swiss Army, literally, which was the inception of the Swiss Army knife. It was made for the Swiss Army. That's why it's called the Swiss Army knife. And he said, I've had this old knife that has stayed in great condition for all these years. And he said, quote, it's been a companion for life, especially as we've lost my grandfather. I pull out his original Swiss Army knife and it brings me back to memories with him. And they went, oh my God, companion for life. That's our purpose. And that's what guides every decision they make. They take the warm water from their factory that they use through their process. They pipe it to the town right next to them and provide them with heating and hot water. The quality has to be baked into that product, because if you're going to make something that's a companion for life, whether it's luggage or a watch or a knife, that better last a lifetime. And so when they made an advertisement for their watch, they literally had someone put the watch as a carabiner and lifted a 200-pound man from a helicopter, companion for life, right? So it's just another fun example, on one that came to mind of, it sounds like an organization that's using those Ds well.
And what was great about that example is it's not about the knife. In fact, they just announced, I think it was like last week, that they're going to start creating Swiss Army knives without knives, because in some countries, a knife is considered a weapon and it's not even allowed to carry them around. So it's not about the knife. It's about that experience that they create, and the luggage and all the other products are a spin-off of the capability that they've built. It's not about the knife itself.
Yeah, which is interesting, because it used to be about the knife, and then September 11th hit. And most of Swiss Army knives were sold at airports before security and even after security. You can't walk onto a plane post 2001 with a knife. So that was the moment for them to use what makes us distinctive, what makes us desirable and durable, but how can we be dynamic now? And that's when they divested into luggage and colognes and perfumes and watches, as well as knives. So just a fun example as well.
I love that. And here's the thing is, sometimes, one of the key, there's two different ways you can become pivotal. One is to pare away anything, get rid of anything that's not what it is you do best, that creates the greatest value. So IBM is brilliant at this. I mean, they've, in several rounds over the years, they got rid of their whole PC line, the ThinkPad line. They sold it to Lenovo. And then recently they got rid of a whole bunch of their different lines, because they're focusing on what they do best, what creates the greatest value that others would have a difficult time doing. PCs they're more commodities, and they realize we can have great PCs, but others are going to have great PCs. What is it that we can do that no one else can do? And then here's sort of the paradoxical thing, though, is sometimes once you get that clarity on what you do best, that focus, now you can actually go broad. And I like Otis Elevators, for example. They thought they were in the elevator business, but they weren't. Their expertise wasn't in manufacturing elevators. Their expertise was in all things elevators. And what they realized was, well, we don't just need to install elevators, we can fix elevators. And we don't have to just repair and maintain our elevators. We can repair, maintain elevators from any brand. Their services business now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's just like, I think it's something like 80% of their profits, a ridiculous number of their profits come from that services side of the business, because they realized their capability wasn't just about manufacturing, but it was all things related to elevators. Now, they could potentially expand that into different places, but it's really getting that right balance between that focus of getting rid of whatever's not you, and then being able to go extra deep. And that's, to me, the way I describe it is it's really about doubling down. It's about that depth. If I'm an expert in elevators, how can I create more value for my customers? Because we can create greater revenues either by selling more to new customers or creating more value for existing customers. And that's always a question I like to ask is, what is it that I can do better than anyone else that my customers need, that I can go even deeper and deeper and deeper? And if I add more value, I don't need to have as many customers. I can have fewer, yet more profitable and more valuable customers. And so that's all part of that whole process.
Yeah, I love that. We're in the elevator business that we've made.
And I would argue that they could think of themselves as maybe, I'm just saying maybe here, that they're in the people mover business, which is maybe even beyond elevators. Maybe there's other forms of transportation. It's like Sony. Sony, they're in the entertainment business, but they're not in the hardware business like we might think. And this is why they're partnering with Honda. And once autonomous vehicles are fully realized, well, what's the next best place to capture an audience for entertainment? It's going to be in an autonomous vehicle. Yeah. And so, Sony's not in the automotive business. They're in the entertainment business, partnering with Honda, which is in the automotive business, creating these theaters on the road. So it's just a very creative endeavor. So to be pivotal, you want to create more and more and more value, but it has to be aligned with what you do best, because a lot of times people start then chasing lots of different opportunities and they're not really focused on what they already do well. It requires them to create new capabilities, and that's when they get into trouble. So it sounds the same by diversifying, but it's not always the same.
Love that. That's so interesting. And I can already envision a future in which you go into your autonomous vehicle and it's what am I going to watch now, or what work am I going to do, or what meeting am I going to have? It totally transforms the use of that time. So what are the players that can make use of that time where you're there? Love that. Great comment here. Yes, enjoying the session. Same here. Please do keep hopping on, saying hello. Let us know where you're joining us from, and if you have comments or questions on what it means to be pivotal. Question for you, Stephen.
Yes.
And it's a personal one. As you came up with this idea for this book. What has changed for you? Has anything either changed for you personally or has deepened for you because of writing this book? Like, as you reflect upon the content for yourself, what did you learn about you, or just already know, but it was deepened?
Yeah, it's always the challenge in writing books, and I'm sure you've had the same experience for yourself when you wrote your book, is you have to ask yourself, am I, the old Silicon Valley expression, am I eating my own dog food, or am I really applying this to my life? And I realized in some respects, I started getting away from the things which I really believed. So for example, one of my differentiators is my content. That's expected of somebody who's going to give speeches and do consulting and things of that nature. But my bigger differentiator, because there's a plethora of content out there, and especially with AI now, we're not in a shortage of content. We're in a shortage of content that connects with people. And that's what I do, is I find ways of taking maybe a complex topic and turning it into something fun. And so, you mentioned in the beginning about personality poker. I just happened to That's a deck of personality poker cards. And basically, this is something I developed about 20 years ago, which was a card game to help people understand how they contribute to the success of an organization. But then I had another book and another book and another book, and things started getting serious. And I started to lose a little bit of the traction in terms of the thing which I loved, which was I always wanted to be a game show host growing up. When I was a kid, that's what I wanted. And so I just decided recently that if my true personal differentiator is my ability to connect with an audience and create games and have people engage with meaningful content in a way that makes a difference in an enjoyable way, well, I need to do that. So I launched a new business. And it's all around creating games that make a difference. It's about games that make an impact in the lives and businesses of other people. And that's sort of an epiphany that I had going through the process with this book, is realizing I lost touch of what made me special because I just started chasing what I thought the market needed rather than what I wanted and what was my personal differentiator.
Wow, that's great. I love that. I wrote down content that connects, which needs context. Like
Yes.
if you don't have context, it's like I heard that content is the water, but the context is the glass. So you need to figure out which content is going to fit which glass, whatever you're pouring into. And then I love this notion of fun. Like what you bring is experience and fun. And it's so interesting when you define yourself as, I'm the author, speaker, innovation person, I need to do that. And it's like, no. I'm the content that connects, is engaging, is fun, and makes a meaningful difference. Which, I mean, it's leaning into Simon Sinek Golden Circle stuff of it doesn't matter as much what you do, it matters why you do it and how you bring it to life, which is what you're speaking to here.
Well, and it's interesting if you think about the 5 Ds. In the back of the book, we talk about how do you apply that to your personal life? How do you apply that to your team? Because a lot of people, when they hear about the 5 Ds, they think of it as organizational strategy, but it's not. Every team, every department, every function, every part of an organization needs to figure out how they differentiate and apply the 5 Ds. Every person should be thinking about the same thing. So when I look at it, I say, okay, what is it that I do that's distinctive? What is it that I do that no one else could do? Because then it's going to make it durable. But it also has to be desirable externally and internally. It has to be something I love to do. It gets me going. It gets me excited. But the world has to value it. I don't want to be no offense, but I don't want to be a starving artist. I don't want to be someone who, I'm doing what I love, but the rest of the world just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because I need to live. I need to eat. So it's when you get all those Ds and then you figure out, okay, well, now I need to disseminate that. And when I look at my marketing materials, am I really sharing what are the table stakes? Am I sharing what everyone else is sharing? Or am I really focused on my differentiator? So the key concept of the book is to innovate where you differentiate. You want to innovate where you differentiate, and then you want to find different strategies for everything else. And from the dissemination perspective, is you want to sell, you want to market, you want to create your external persona around your differentiator, not all the things that are table stakes and expectations.
Love that. So good. What else? What else haven't we covered here that you think is there's one sentence that passion meets opportunity, I think is what you just said there is, yes, take passion, what makes you distinct, but you also need to match it with what others need. If you want to have traction, if you want it to make a material difference. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, so if one of the things which I find is a really powerful framework in the book, and it's a pretty meaty section. So we had the 5 Ds. One was desirable, and part of that is external desirability. So I just want to talk for a couple minutes about external desirability, because most people get that wrong. They think if I create something that is so cool, so spectacular, so amazing, everybody's going to want it. But it doesn't always work that way. Like if you had 2 marketing materials, and one was, how to become a millionaire in a week, and the other one was how to get out of debt fast. The reality is most people, because in the United States at least, the average debt, not including mortgage, the average debt is about $39,000 per person, excluding their mortgage. So nobody's going to be thinking about becoming a millionaire until they're out of debt. But you think, well, everybody wants to be a millionaire. Of course, people are going to buy that, but it's not how we're wired. So there's some great research done by Ludwig von Mises, who is an Austrian economist, and basically said, if you want someone to make a shift, you need 3 things to be in place. One, they have to be uncomfortable with the way things are today. Because if they're comfortable enough, they're not going to do business with you. They'll stay where they are.
Yep.
Basically, they're not going to change. Second thing is they have to be able to see a better state. Okay, less debt, more money, however you define that. But it's that third element. So the first one is the current state, dissatisfaction. Second one is the future state. But it's the third one that's so incredibly important, which is, and they have to believe that they have the confidence, the desire, the time, the money, the effort, the resources, the risk to make that happen. And for most people, we think the gap between that first, the current state, and the future state is what's key. The reality is it's also recognizing that it has to feel achievable. So sometimes something that may be less desirable in that it's not as far into the future, it's a smaller step, but I feel like I can do it, means I will do it. A buddy of mine did a number of years back, he's in the website development business, and he wanted to create an information marketing program so that he didn't always have to build the websites. And it was a program on creating websites that convert, websites that sell. And he did a test. He had 2 offerings. They were identical. They were absolutely identical. The only thing that was different was the marketing materials. The first one was a 15 DVD set on how to create websites that convert. The second one was a 3 DVD set with 12 bonus DVDs, which you had access to if you ran into problems. And it was that second offering that was significantly more popular, because people say, I can handle 3 DVDs, but 15, holy moly, there's no way I'm going to get through that. So how we frame things is going to be very important in terms of the desirability of what you offer.
Nice. I'm just laughing at DVDs helping us build websites. Yes, that sounds very 12 years ago.
It's pretty amazing how quickly the technology changes.
Yeah, but that's great. So you said those 3 things are: 1, dissatisfaction with present state, seeing a desirable future state, but then confidence that you can actually materially make a difference in engaging with something to help you close that gap.
Right. I mean, if you think about a company, if a company's invested a ton of money in technology, for example, SAP or Oracle or something like that, and they spent millions and millions and millions and decades, getting the software in there, and you come along with a better system, well, they might not really like what they have today, and they might be able to see that your product is better, but they start looking at, well, it's going to cost us a ton of money to make the shift. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to disrupt us. It's very risky because now we're going to have to redo all of our databases. And then people start to no longer make decisions. So the question is, how can you, that third factor, if you can focus on that and really make it as cheap, easy, effortless, low risk as possible. So one of the things that over the past couple of decades, I've had so many different systems, whether it's a CRM, my customer relationship management system, my autoresponder, which is how I send out my newsletters, my QuickBooks, my landing page. I had all these different technologies, and I never switched them because it was way too much work to switch.
Yeah.
Well, there's a company that said, for a flat fee, we will take all your data, all your systems, and we'll put them onto one integrated platform, and it's one and done. And I'm like, if you can do that, you would be a lifesaver. And it was a lifesaver. It was amazing what they did. And so they focused not so much on having the best product, because all the other individual products are actually slightly better. But when you pull it all together and you eliminate all the risk and the effort and the cost, it was a no-brainer.
Nice. Very good. Well, we're gonna begin to land this plane here. So if you had a comment or a question you wanted to ask Stephen on what it means to be pivotal, anything that we've been discussing, please hop into the chat and ask that question, make that comment as well. Feel free to hop in and just let us know what you've gleaned. What are you taking from this conversation as well, so we can see that. Stephen, anything else that we've yet to touch on that you think is important in this conversation to share before we say goodbye?
I'll give you one last framework in the book. I wasn't sure we were going to talk about this, but we sort of alluded to it. So we'll just dissect it real quickly in a couple of minutes.
Love it.
When we look at the work that we do as individuals, as teams, everything we do falls into one of 3 categories. And the 3 categories are what I call support, core, and differentiating. Now, if you're in an organization, support work is work that supports the organization but doesn't create value for your customers. So payroll. I mean, unless you're in the payroll system business, investing $1 billion in creating the world's best payroll system is a ridiculously bad investment. So anything that is support in nature, we want to, if possible, eliminate it. A lot of meetings would fall into that category, but basically eliminate it, minimize it, automate it, or outsource it. The second category are core. And we talked about the concept of table stakes. And to me, this is really important, is to recognize that core capabilities, the things that you do that are core, are not the reason someone will do business with you. But if you get them wrong, it will be the reason someone leaves. So if you're in the hospitality industry, if you're in the hotel industry, you go to a hotel, you expect it to be clean. You expect the Wi-Fi to work. You expect there to be a television. If those things aren't working, they're going to leave, but they're not going to say, oh, I stayed at this hotel, it was clean, that's why I'm going to stay there again. No, that's not the reason.
They only say if it's not clean.
Exactly. So it's the differentiating where we want to invest our energies. And when I look at how most companies and individuals and teams are investing their time, 80% of it is in support and core, and less than 20% of it is in differentiating. And so if we can start really doubling down on our differentiators, if we can really go deep into what makes us special, those 5 Ds, we get an extraordinary return. And the studies we've done show that it's really, truly amazing what kinds of returns we can get by focusing on the differentiators rather than core and support.
Love that. Love that. Those support and core should work. I mean, you need payroll, but you don't need to be, that's not adding value to your customer. Core needs to be there, but it's that differentiating that's going to bring all this to life and give it a ton more value.
Right. Exactly.
Love that.
And I'll just one last thing related to that, and then we can land this plane is if you're in the B2B business, if your customers are businesses, then this concept of support, core, and differentiating is really valuable. And what I've suggested people do is talk to your customer, and if they can get super clear on what their differentiator is, then anything that is support or core is something they should look to you to do if it is your differentiator. And when you start matching your differentiator with someone else's support and core, now you have a winning combination. You create the greatest value for your customers, and your customers now get to focus on what will create the greatest value for them.
Now that's fun. Now you have a nice complex when Venn diagrams hit other Venn diagrams in complementary ways. That's very cool. Love that. Well, I was told, Stephen, from a friend of mine who's a retired Royal Air Force pilot, that the definition of a successful landing is one in which all passengers and crew get off alive, regardless of the condition of the plane. So I think we're going to land this plane here. Thank you to Stephen Shapiro for joining. His new book, Pivotal: Creating Stability in an Uncertain World, comes out in less than a month, June 18th. Please do grab it. If there's any indication of this conversation, there's a ton of value in there, both for you individually as well as for your organization. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us.
It was my pleasure, truly.
Great. Amazing. Thank you all. Grab Stephen's book, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.